The night was silent, the Earth was sleeping. Above the planet, far beyond the blue sky, space was dark and endless. Stars were shining like tiny lights in a black ocean. In that deep silence, something important was about to happen. On Earth, inside a small control room, scientists were awake. They were worried. For many years, humans had looked at the sky and asked the same question again and again. What is out there? Where did we come from? Are we alone? Human eyes were weak. They could see the moon, they could see some stars, but the universe was much bigger, much older, much deeper. The scientists knew one thing very clearly. Earth was not a good place to see the universe. The air above Earth was full of problems. Clouds blocked the sky, dust blurred the view, city lights killed the darkness. Even the air itself bent the light from stars. No matter how strong a telescope was, Earth always stood in the way. Every night, astronomers felt the same pain. They wanted to see more, but they couldn't. One scientist stood near a window. He looked up at the sky. His face was tired. He whispered, "We are blind." That moment changed everything. Far away inside a government building, a phone started ringing. It was late. Very late. The call was urgent. A group of scientists had made a decision. A dangerous one, an expensive one. A decision that many people would not like. They wanted to send a telescope into space. Not on a mountain, not in a desert, but beyond Earth itself. They believed only space could give them a clear view of the universe. The phone call reached the right people. The message was simple but powerful. We need help. If we stay on Earth, we will never understand the universe. This was not a normal call. This was a desperate call. The idea sounded crazy. Sending a telescope into space was risky. Space was cold. Space was empty. Space was deadly. If something went wrong, there would be no repair, no second chance. Many people laughed. Some said, "Why waste so much money?" Others said, "It will fail." Some said it is impossible, but the scientists did not stop. They knew time was running out. The universe was changing every second. Stars were being born. Galaxies were crashing. Light from the first stars was still traveling through space, waiting to be seen. If humans waited too long, that light might never be understood. Inside the control room, maps of space covered the walls. Old telescope images looked weak and blurry. The scientists wanted more than blurry dots. They wanted details. They wanted history. They wanted truth. One scientist spoke softly, but his voice was strong. "We are standing on the shore of a cosmic ocean," he said, "and we are afraid to sail." The room was silent. Everyone knew he was right. Finally, approval came. The mission was accepted. A space telescope would be built. It would leave Earth. It would orbit above the planet. It would see the universe like never before. Hope returned, but hope did not last long. Building a space telescope was not easy. Every mirror had to be perfect. Every screw had to survive extreme cold and heat. One small mistake could destroy the mission. Years passed. Money problems appeared. Delays followed. Doubt grew stronger. People started asking again, "Is it worth it? Should we stop?" The scientists felt pressure from all sides. Still, they pushed forward. They believed the telescope was not just a machine. It was humanity's eye. It was humanity's dream. At last, the day came. The telescope was ready. It was placed inside a rocket. Engineers checked everything again and again. There was no room for error. The launch day arrived. Millions watched. The rocket stood tall. Smoke filled the air. The ground shook. And then fire. The rocket lifted slowly, then faster, breaking free from Earth. The telescope was on its way to space. Cheers filled the control room. But deep inside, fear remained, because space is unforgiving and no one knew what would happen next. The desperate call had been answered, but the real test was just beginning. High above Earth, the telescope traveled alone, waiting, watching, ready to open humanity's eyes or fail forever. To be continued, the rocket was gone. Only smoke remained. On Earth, people cheered, cameras flashed, news anchors smiled. To them, the mission was already a success. But in the control room, the scientists did not celebrate for long. They knew the truth. The hardest part had just begun. High above Earth, the telescope was alone. No hands could touch it, no tools could fix it, no voice could calm it. It was moving fast, wrapped in silence, circling a living planet that could no longer protect it. Below, Earth looked peaceful, blue, beautiful. But above the sky, danger waited. Space was not empty. It was cruel. There was no air, no warmth, no forgiveness. One wrong move, one small failure, and the telescope would become useless metal, forever lost in the dark. Inside the control room, screens glowed softly. Numbers moved. Signals arrived with a small delay. Every second felt heavy. One engineer leaned forward. "Signal is stable," he said. No one smiled. They had seen stable signals fail before. The telescope was now free from Earth's gravity. It was floating, but floating did not mean safe. Tiny pieces of space rock moved faster than bullets. Radiation washed over everything without warning. The scientists watched closely. This telescope was different from any machine before it. It was designed to see what humans had never seen. But first it had to survive. Hours passed. The telescope began its first task. It turned slowly, very slowly. This was not a mistake. Fast movement could damage its sensitive parts. Every action was gentle, careful, planned for years. The telescope opened its outer cover. Inside, its mirrors waited. Mirrors were the heart of the telescope. If they failed, the mission failed. Down on Earth, one scientist closed his eyes. He remembered the long nights, the arguments, the fear of budget cuts, the moments when the project almost died. This telescope carried more than metal and glass. It carried hope. Finally, the command was sent. Activate the mirror system. A pause. Signals traveled through space, moving at the speed of light. Still, the wait felt endless. Then data appeared. The mirror had responded. Relief spread through the room, but it was quiet relief. No loud voices, no cheers, not yet, because one mirror was not enough. The telescope had to align perfectly. Even a tiny error, smaller than a human hair, could blur the universe. Space did not allow second chances. Telescope continued its journey, circling Earth again and again. With every orbit, it moved farther from human control and closer to complete independence. It was learning to work alone. Outside, the sun rose and set. On Earth, days passed. People slowly forgot about the launch. But the scientists did not forget. They watched every movement. Then something strange happened. The images started arriving. At first, they were dark, empty, almost nothing. Some people panicked. "Is it broken?" someone whispered. The lead scientist stared at the screen. "No," he said calmly, "it is adjusting." The telescope was focusing. Light from distant stars was entering the mirrors. Light that had traveled for millions of years. Light that existed long before human. The telescope was not just seeing space, it was seeing the past. Slowly, shapes appeared, tiny points of light, then more. The first test image was complete. It was not beautiful. It was not colorful, but it was clear, clearer than anything seen before. The room froze. Someone spoke in a soft voice. "It works." For a moment, no one moved. Then emotion broke through the silence. Some smiled, some laughed quietly. One person wiped tears from their eyes, but the universe was still hiding its secrets. This was only the beginning. The telescope had proven it could see. Now it needed a name that would be remembered, a name that would travel through history. That name would soon become famous across the world. And the images it would send would change how humans see the universe forever. But far away, beyond what anyone expected, a future telescope was already being imagined. Bigger, colder, more powerful, because when humans learn to see, they always want to see more, and the universe was ready to test them again. To be continued, the celebration did not last long. Inside the control room, excitement slowly turned into silence. Scientists leaned closer to the screens. The images were clear, but something felt wrong, very wrong. The telescope was now fully active, its mirrors were open, its systems were working. It was finally ready to show the universe, so the team pointed it toward a bright star. A very easy target. If the telescope worked perfectly, the star should look sharp, clean, beautiful. The command was sent. Everyone waited. The image appeared on the screen, and suddenly hearts dropped. The star looked strange. It was not sharp, it was not clear, it was blurred. At first no one spoke. One scientist thought maybe it is a mistake. Another thought maybe the data is late. They tried again. Same result. The star looked like a soft glow, not a sharp point. Confusion spread through the room. This was impossible. The telescope was above Earth's air. No clouds, no dust, no light pollution. This was the perfect place to see space. So why was the image wrong? The lead scientist slowly stood up. "Run more tests," he said. Hours passed. More images came. Galaxies, stars, distant objects, all of them had the same problem. They were blurry. The truth was painful. The telescope could see, but it could not see clearly. Silence filled the room again. This was worse than total failure, because now the telescope was alive, it was working, but it was flawed. $1 billion eye that could not focus. The news spread fast. People who once cheered now asked hard questions. What went wrong? Who made the mistake? Can it be fixed? The media was cruel. Some called it a disaster. Some called it a joke. Some said the mission should never have happened. The scientists felt crushed. They checked everything again and again, every line of data, every measurement from years ago, and then they found it, a tiny error. So small that it was almost invisible. The main mirror was slightly wrong, not broken, not cracked, just shaped incorrectly by a very tiny amount, smaller than a human hair. But in space science, tiny mistakes become huge problems. The mirror bent the light in the wrong way, just enough to blur the universe. One engineer covered his face with his hands. "This is our fault," he said quietly. The telescope was now circling Earth, perfect and imperfect at the same time. It was blind in one eye, and the worst part, it was too late. The telescope was already in space. Most people believed the mission was over. They said, "You can't fix it." They said, "Bring it back." They said, "Accept the failure," but the scientists refused. They stared at the screen again. The telescope was not useless. It still gathered light, it still worked, it just needed help. And then someone asked a dangerous question. "What if we go to it?" The room went quiet. Go to it, that meant sending humans into space. Not just into orbit, but on a repair mission. A mission never done before. Fixing a telescope in space was not planned. It was not easy. It was extremely risky. One mistake could cost lives. Space does not forgive errors. Many said no, too risky, too expensive, too dangerous. But the scientists knew something important. If they gave up now, humanity would lose its best chance to see the universe. This telescope was still humanity's eye. It was wounded, not dead. Plans slowly began. Engineers designed special tools. Astronauts started training, every move was studied again and again, time was running. Each day the telescope continued to orbit Earth, waiting in silence, waiting for decision. Up there above the planet, the telescope did not know it was flawed. It kept watching. It kept collecting light from stars that were born billions of years ago. It kept trying. Down on Earth, humans faced a choice: walk away or risk everything to fix the eye that could change how we see the universe. The blind eye was not ready to close, and the next chapter would decide its fate. To be continued, no one slept that night. Inside the planning rooms, papers covered the tables. Screens showed diagrams of the telescope. Every line, every screw, every shadow mattered. The idea was simple to say, but dangerous to do. Fix the telescope in space. Humans had never repaired such a complex machine above Earth before. Space was not a workshop. There was no gravity, no air, no safe ground to stand on. One wrong move could send an astronaut drifting forever into darkness. Many leaders said no. This is too risky, they said. We could lose lives. We should stop. But the scientists did not stop. They believed failure was worse than fear. The telescope was still working. Its mirrors still collected light. If they could correct the error, the universe would become clear. The problem was not the telescope. The problem was how to fix it. Engineers searched for answers. They studied the mirror error again. The mistake was tiny but deadly for sharp vision. Finally, someone had an idea. What if we don't fix the mirror? An engineer said, but fix the light. The room froze. Fix the light, he explained slowly. If the mirror was bending light the wrong way, then a new system could bend it back the right way, like glasses for a weak eye. The telescope did not need a new mirror, it needed glasses. Hope returned, but now came the hardest part. Someone had to install those glasses in space. Astronauts were selected. They trained in water tanks that felt like zero gravity. They practiced with thick gloves. They learned every move until it became memory. The astronauts were calm on the outside. Inside, they knew the danger. A tool could float away. A screw could get lost. A hand could slip. There would be no rescue if something went wrong. Launch day arrived. Once again, a rocket stood ready. But this time it carried humans. Families watched from far away. No smiles, only fear and pride mixed together. The rocket roared to life. The astronauts left Earth behind, chasing a wounded eye in the sky. Days later, they reached the telescope. From their window, it looked peaceful, silent, floating like a sleeping giant. But it was not sleeping, it was waiting. The first spacewalk began. An astronaut slowly moved toward the telescope. Below him, Earth spun quietly. One push could change everything. His heart beat fast, but his hands were steady. He touched the telescope. Human hands touched a machine that had traveled alone for years. History was being written in silence. The astronauts opened panels never meant to be opened in space. Tools floated like ghosts. Time moved slowly. Every step was dangerous. Then the moment came. They installed the correction system. The telescope now wore its glasses. The astronauts stepped back. Nothing exploded, nothing moved, nothing happened. Was it enough? They could not know. The mission was complete. The astronauts returned home safely, but the real test was still ahead. Back on Earth, scientists waited again. Commands were sent. Systems restarted. The telescope turned its eye toward the stars once more. Everyone held their breath. The first image arrived, and suddenly the universe snapped into focus. Stars became sharp points of light. Galaxies showed shape and detail never seen before. Someone whispered, it worked. Tears fell, laughter followed. The telescope was no longer blind. It could finally see the universe as it truly was. But the story was not over. This success changed everything. It proved that humans could fix machines in space. It proved that failure was not the end. It proved that the universe could be reached. And somewhere in the minds of scientists, a new thought was forming. If we can fix one eye in space, what if we build a better one? Bigger, colder, more powerful. A new dream was born, and far in the future that dream would have a name. James Webb, to be continued. The telescope was alive now. High above Earth, it moved in silence, watching the universe with a clear eye. But one question still remained. How did this machine actually see? Most people thought a telescope worked like a human eye. They were wrong. A space telescope does not look, it collects. Far away in deep space, stars were burning. Galaxies were spinning. Planets were forming. All of them sent out light. This light was not fast for humans. It traveled for millions, sometimes billions of years. By the time it reached the telescope, the stars that made it might already be gone. The telescope was not seeing the present, it was seeing the past. Inside the telescope, the journey of light began. Light entered the front opening. There were no glass lenses like normal telescopes. Glass was heavy. Glass could break. Instead, the telescope used mirrors. Big mirrors, perfect mirrors. The main mirror caught the light first. It was shaped like a deep bowl. When light hit it, the mirror pushed the light toward a smaller mirror. That smaller mirror sent the light again, deeper inside the telescope. This dance of light was careful and exact. If the mirror shape was wrong, even by a tiny amount, the image would blur. That is why the mirror was everything. The light then reached the heart of the telescope. The camera, but this was not a normal camera. It did not take photos like a phone. It did not use film. Instead, it used sensors. These sensors were quiet listeners. They counted light. Every tiny bit of light became data. Numbers, signals, information. The telescope did not send pictures to Earth, it sent data. Far below on Earth, computers turned this data into images. Colors were added, details were sharpened. What people saw on screens was not raw truth, it was translated truth. Still, it was more real than anything before. The telescope did not sleep. Day and night meant nothing to it. It watched while Earth turned. It watched while humans lived and died. But even with clear mirrors and strong sensors, the telescope had limits. It could only see certain kinds of light. Humans see visible light, the light of rainbows, the light of stars at night, but the universe speaks in many languages. There was invisible light, infrared light, ultraviolet light, X-rays. Some light showed heat, some light showed danger, some light showed birth. The telescope could see more than human eyes, but not everything. Scientists began to understand something important. The universe was hiding behind invisible light. The first stars did not shine in visible light, they shined in infrared, and that light was too weak, too stretched for this telescope to fully see. The universe was whispering. Humans were only hearing part of the message. The telescope continued its mission, sending stunning images. Galaxies like cities of stars, nebulae like colorful clouds, exploding stars dying in fire. People around the world stared in wonder. The telescope became famous. Children pointed at the sky with new curiosity. But in quiet rooms, scientists were thinking ahead. They asked a dangerous question. What are we missing? The universe was older than expected, bigger than imagined, stranger than feared. If light could stretch with time, then the oldest light would be the hardest to see. To catch it, a telescope would need to be different, much bigger, much colder, much farther from Earth. This telescope worked near Earth. Earth was warm, Earth was noisy. Heat could block infrared light. Light pollution could confuse sensors. To hear the universe's oldest whispers, scientists needed silence, deep silence, cold silence, far away from Earth. The idea sounded impossible. A telescope larger than any before. One that could not fit inside a normal rocket. One that would need to unfold in space. One mistake and it would be lost forever. Many remembered the fear of the past. The broken mirror, the desperate repair, the risk to human lives. Was it worth trying again? The answer came slowly. The universe had shown humans beauty. Now it was inviting them deeper. The telescope in orbit had opened humanity's eyes, but the universe was still hiding its first chapter. And somewhere, in plans and drawings, a new eye was taking shape. An eye that would not just see stars, but see the beginning of time itself. To be continued, the success of the old telescope changed everything. It showed galaxies, it showed dying stars, it showed beauty humans never imagined. But for the scientists, success brought a new problem. The more they saw, the more questions appeared. Late at night inside quiet rooms, scientists stared at the images again and again. Something felt missing. They were seeing deep into space, but not deep enough. The universe was like a book and humans had started reading it from the middle. The first pages were still hidden. One scientist spoke during a meeting. "We can see galaxies," he said, "but we cannot see the first stars." Another added, "The oldest light is invisible to our telescope." The room fell silent. Invisible light, that light had traveled for billions of years. During its journey, the universe expanded, the light stretched, it changed. Visible light became infrared light, and the old telescope was not made for that. It was like trying to hear a whisper with loud ears. The universe was speaking softly. Humans were missing the message. Someone asked the question no one wanted to ask. Do we need a new telescope? The room became tense. They remembered the past, the broken mirror, the public anger, the risk to astronauts. New telescope would be harder, much harder. This telescope would need to be bigger than any before, so big that it could not fit inside a rocket in one piece. It would need to fold like paper and open in space. Once opened, it could never be repaired. No astronauts, no second chance. If it failed, it would fail forever. Many people said, "No, this is impossible. This will cost too much. This will take too long." Some said humans should stop chasing the beginning of time. But curiosity is stronger than fear. The scientists kept going. They designed a telescope that worked in infrared light. To see heat, it needed to be very cold, extremely cold, colder than space near Earth. Heat from the sun could ruin everything, so they planned something dangerous. They would send the telescope far away, very far, farther than the moon, farther than any repair mission could reach. A place where Earth, moon, and sun stayed on one side. A quiet place. A dark place. A place called Lagrange Point 2. There the telescope could hide from heat. To survive, it needed a giant shield. A shield the size of a tennis court, thin as paper, strong as metal, 5 layers, each layer blocking heat. If even one layer failed, the telescope would warm up and go blind. Engineers worked for years, then decades. The telescope became more complex than anything ever built. Millions of parts, thousands of risks. People began to call it crazy. Some called it cursed. Delays kept happening, costs grew. Many times the project almost died, but each time the scientists returned. They believed this telescope was not just a machine, it was a time machine. It could look back to the moment when the first stars turned on. It could answer the biggest question of all. How did everything begin? Finally, the telescope was given a name, James Webb. The name carried weight. Now the pressure was real. If James Webb failed, trust would be lost. If it succeeded, history would change. The telescope was folded like a sleeping creature. Every fold was tested again and again. One wrong move during unfolding and it would tear itself apart in space. Launch day came quietly. No loud celebration, no excitement, only tension. The rocket stood ready. Inside it, James Webb waited, the most expensive telescope ever built, the most fragile, the most ambitious. When the rocket launched, the Earth shook. James Webb left its home planet never to return. Days passed, then weeks. The telescope traveled farther and farther away, and then the unfolding began. One step at a time, antenna, solar panels, sunshield, each movement was slow, painfully slow. Engineers watched in silence, sweat on their faces. If one motor failed, if one cable snapped, it would be over. James Webb unfolded alone, far from help, far from hope, far from Earth, and the universe waited. Because soon a new eye would open, an eye that could see what no human had ever seen before. The birth of light, the birth of stars, the birth of time. To be continued. James Webb was alone, very far from Earth, so far that even light needed time to travel back. There were no astronauts, no repair tools, no second chances, only silence. The telescope had one mission left before it could see the universe. It had to unfold, but unfolding was not simple. It was a long chain of events, more than 300 steps. Each step depended on the one before it. If one step failed, everything failed. On Earth, scientists called this time 30 days of terror. Day 1, James Webb released itself from the rocket. Solar panels opened. Power started flowing, a small success, but no one relaxed. This was the easy part. Day 5. The antenna unfolded. Now the telescope could talk to Earth clearly. Voices came back. Signals were strong, still danger waited ahead. The biggest challenge was coming. The sun shield. This shield was the heart of survival. Without it, James Webb would burn. The sun was deadly. Even small heat could destroy the sensors. The shield was folded tight like a gift wrap. It had to open perfectly. 5 thin layers. Each layer had to separate slowly. If they stuck together, the telescope would overheat. On Earth, engineers watched screens. They did not blink. Commands were sent and then waiting. Minutes felt like hours. James Webb began to pull the first layer, slowly, painfully slowly. No sound, no movement that humans could see directly. Only numbers changing on screens. Then a signal. Layer 1 was open. Some people clapped quietly. Others stayed silent, too early to celebrate. Day after day, layer by layer, the shield opened. 1 layer, then 2, then 3. Each time cables tightened. Motors moved, and each time fear returned. A cable could snap, a motor could stop, a fold could jam, but James Webb kept going. It was as if the telescope knew how important it was. By day 10, the sunshield was fully open. The telescope was now hiding in shadow, cooling down, becoming colder than deep space near Earth. But still, it was not ready. The mirrors, 18 golden mirrors waited. They were folded like petals. They had to open one by one. If one mirror failed to move, the image would break. On Earth, no one spoke. Commands were sent. The first mirror moved, then locked into place. The second, the third, one by one, the golden mirrors opened like a flower in space. When the last mirror locked in, something changed. The telescope was no longer sleeping. It was awake, but seeing was still far away. Now came alignment. The mirrors were open but not focused. Each mirror had to move by tiny amounts, smaller than a human hair. Weeks passed. James Webb looked at a single star again and again. The image was strange. The star appeared 18 times, one from each mirror. The telescope was seeing 18 pieces of the same light. Engineers adjusted the mirrors slowly. Tiny movements, careful movements. The images began to move closer. 18 stars became 12, then 6, then 1. The moment arrived. The star became sharp. Perfect. People on Earth froze. Some cried. Some laughed. Some just stared at the screen. James Webb had focused its eye. For the first time in history, a telescope far beyond Earth was ready to look back to the beginning of time. But James Webb was not done. It was still cooling, still adjusting, still preparing. Soon it would look deeper than any telescope before. Deeper than Hubble. Deeper than human imagination. The universe had waited billions of years. Now it was time to speak. And James Webb was finally ready to listen. To be continued. The waiting was over. James Webb was ready. Far from Earth, hidden in cold darkness, the telescope turned its golden eye toward the universe. For the first time, it was not testing, it was not adjusting, it was observing. On Earth, scientists gathered quietly. No music, no cameras, no celebration. Just eyes on screens and hearts beating fast. This moment could not be repeated. James Webb looked at a small, dark piece of sky, a place that looked empty. To human eyes, there was nothing there, but the universe was about to prove humans wrong. The command was sent. Light began to enter the telescope. Old light, very old light. Light that started its journey when the universe was young. When stars were just learning how to shine. Minutes passed, then hours, then the first data arrived. At first, the screen showed noise, dots, shapes without meaning. Scientists stayed calm. They knew this part. Computers worked. Numbers turned into images. Slowly, something appeared. Gas clouds, tiny stars, hidden galaxies. The screen filled with light. Someone whispered, "This is impossible." But it was real. James Webb was seeing galaxies that had never been seen before. Galaxies so far away that their light had traveled for more than 13 billion years. This was not just deep space. This was early space. The universe as it once was. People stopped breathing. James Webb did not see empty darkness. It saw thousands of galaxies where humans once saw nothing. The universe was crowded, alive, busy. Every image told a story, stars being born inside thick clouds of gas, planets forming around young suns, light bending under the power of gravity. The telescope was not just showing beauty, it was answering questions. Where did stars come from? How did galaxies grow? What came after the beginning? James Webb looked at dying stars too. Stars that exploded, stars that spread the elements of life across space. Carbon, oxygen, iron, the same elements inside the human body. The message was clear. Humans were not separate from the universe, they were made from it. As images spread across the world, people stared in silence. Children, teachers, artists, scientists, everyone felt the same thing. A strange mix of wonder and fear. The universe was bigger than imagined, older than imagined, more beautiful than imagined. James Webb also looked at distant planets, worlds far beyond the solar system. Some were hot, some were cold, some had clouds, some had water vapor. For the first time, humans could study the air of another world. Could life exist there? James Webb did not answer that question, but it made the question real. The telescope continued to watch, night after night. It did not sleep. It did not get tired. It quietly collected the universe. Years passed. James Webb kept sending discoveries. Each one pushed human knowledge further. Each one reminded scientists of a simple truth. Every answer creates new questions, and now humans were asking bigger questions than ever before. What came before the first stars? Are we alone? Is there an end to the universe? James Webb would not last forever. One day its fuel would run out. One day, its eye would close, but its legacy would remain. It proved something important. Humans are small, but curiosity is powerful. From Earth, people looked up at the night sky again. The stars looked the same, but humans were different now. They knew the darkness was not empty, it was full of stories, and somewhere far beyond the sky a golden eye was still watching. Listening, waiting, because the universe is not done speaking, and humans are not done listening. The end.